Lies. Sometimes I wonder if the human race invented language so we could spend more time lying to each other. My ex used to call me cynical, and I called her sweetie until I found out she was a lying whore. Lies are like water. Some people seem to live on them, but too many of them will drown most anyone. I need to find out why Carlton Rocksavage lied to us. What was his real purpose for the trip on the Golden Gull? I think I have an idea, but first we gotta hurry down to the crime scene and see what else we can discover. This is the continuation of Kettering's second report. On receipt of Lieutenant Schwab's memo and photographs of C-Suite on the SY Golden Gull, once again Rocksavage's ship, I at once proceeded below in the company of Detective Officer Neem to make a thorough examination of Blane's suite in the daylight. I first examined the marks on the carpet, mentioned in Lieutenant Schwab's report and apparent in print B, the two lines as though somebody had dragged a chair, perhaps with a dead or unconscious body in it. These marks consist of a slight irregular roughing of the pile in the carpet, running from the table, he knows how to pronounce L's unlike me, to the near window. Owing to the light, they are not observable from the inboard side of the cabin, but only from the outboard side, which explains my failure to notice them last night, and the fact that, while appearing in print B, they are not observable in print A. These marks might have been made by two legs of a chair being dragged across the carpet. Catch up with the rest of us, Kettering. I found, however, at the table end of these roughly parallel tracks, a very slightly discolored patch upon the carpet. Did you poop on the carpet, Kettering? The patch upon the carpet, which would not have been visible in electric light. I then proceeded to examine the porthole window and found upon the left-hand curtain a smear of blood. Dun dun dun! It's obvious, right? Bolitho Blane shot himself with his Colt 1911, then threw himself out the window, just in case. Returning to the patch on the carpet, it seemed to me probable that a small quantity of blood had been spilled here too, and that someone had endeavored to get it out by rubbing the place with a wet sponge. We know there have been sponges all over the place. If we look at the pictures we saw earlier, there is a sponge in Bolitho Blane's bathroom. It doesn't look like it's wet. It's kind of hard to tell, but it doesn't look wet. And there's also what appears to be two sponges around the sink in Stoddard's room. You can see the kind of weird roundish one on the right, and maybe that's a sponge on the left. That also could be a bar of soap. It's hard to tell if that one is wet, though, the big round one on the right. And if the left one's a sponge, maybe it's wet. But I can't tell if it's that or soap. That might be a bar of soap. I think it is. There certainly are sponges in both rooms. Oh, it would be so much easier if we knew for sure if it was wet. Getting back to Officer Kettering's report. You could get it out by rubbing the place with a wet sponge. If the person had done this immediately after the blood was spilled, as is probable, most of the blood would have been absorbed, hence the faintness of the discoloration. The patch is still damp and measures about 8 inches by 5, although it is probable that if the blood was spilled here, it was no more than a few drops, and the main patch of damp was caused by the endeavor to clean the carpet afterwards. Quickly, to the other sponges, touch them to see if they're damp. In view of this, the tracks on the carpet present a new significance, and I suggest that they were caused by the toes of a man's boots as he was dragged from the table to the porthole. Boots? Do you really think Bolitho Blane was wearing boots? He's like a rich hoity-toity dude from England. Ain't he gonna be wearing some fancy shoes? Like, he didn't come off the cattle ranch, and he probably wasn't out fox hunting before this. I don't know. Kettering continues, the boot tracks and the smear... Wait, no? A man's boots as he was dragged from the table to the porthole. Taken in conjunction with the wet patch, the boot tracks, and the smear of blood upon the window curtain definitely point to the fact that Bolitho Blane was murdered. Dun dun dun. I send this report at once in order that a full investigation may be made into the antecedents of all the passengers upon the yacht who now come under suspicion. I have given instructions as they leave their cabins for breakfast. Each cabin is to be locked after them. I shall then be able to search all cabins before these are tidied and proceed to the examination of all parties concerned immediately they have breakfasted. At least he's letting them get a nice breakfast in while he does the investigation. What is his first name? Kerp? Keys? I don't remember. Kettering, Detective Officer, Florida Police, 7:35 a.m., 9th of March on the Golden Gull. Oh, we've got a picture. Section of the curtain removed from the left-hand side of Bolitho Blane's cabin at 6:45 a.m. Evidence. Blood evidence. So why didn't anybody hear a gunshot? Maybe he was poked with a really long, quiet stick? Very interesting. It's also interesting that there's not like a bullet hole through there. The guests, with the exception of Lady Welter and the Bishop of Bude, who breakfasted in their respective cabins, assembled for breakfast in the dining room between 8:50 and 9:25. As each of them left their cabins, these were locked after them, and the keys were brought to me. Maybe Lady Welter or the Bishop were smart. I couldn't get them locked out if they're going to eat breakfast in their cabins. They had finished breakfast by 9:50. So I took over a small writing room and proceeded to the examination of all parties, first recalling Mr. Rocksavage. All right, Rocksavage, let's see if we can break your rich hoity-toity ass. Detective Officer Neem's shorthand notes of Detective Officer Kettering's examination of Mr. Carlton Rocksavage. Neem, were you the one who screwed up the time before? You better not ruin this. Come in, Mr. Rocksavage, come in. I'm sorry to upset your trip like this, but there are just one or two little things I have got to ask so that we can clear this matter up. I hope it didn't give you a bad night. Oh, no, thank you. I slept perfectly well. Naturally, I was a bit upset at anything like this happening on my yacht. And it was a shock for my guests, too. But it wasn't as if Bolitho Blane was a personal friend of mine, as I had never met the man. Any distress I have been feeling is more general than particular. All right, Anal Andrews. Sure, whatever. Of course, it's not like losing a personal friend. I can quite see like that. We get along, me, Officer Kettering, and you, right, Rocksavage? Now tell me your secrets. Now, Mr. Rocksavage, I want you to tell me the real reason for this trip. We know he's lied. It's not just a pleasure cruise in shark or eel-infested waters. As I said last night, it's merely a pleasure jaunt to get a little sunbathing and big game fishing with a few friends. Mr. Bolitho Blane was not a friend of yours, so you say? Well, it's true, I'd never met him, but, we corresponded a lot, and we happened to be in the same line of business, so I figured, a good opportunity to make his, acquaintance. Business. Now we're getting somewhere, I think, Rocksavage. Just what was the business you proposed to transact with Blane on this trip? It was a pleasure party, I tell you. Now, Mr. Rocksavage, that won't do. I had a talk with Mr. Stoddart last night, and he seems to have known quite a bit about Blane's affairs. So, I think you'd best be open with me. Oh, I see. Stoddart let out the fact that Blane and I were to do a deal if possible, did he? Well, that's true. That's better. Why didn't you let me in on that the first time? Well, this is quite unforeseen and very unfortunate unfair. I assure you will understand that the last thing I want is any undue publicity. Yeah, sure, whatever. As you know, I'm the president of Rocksavage Consolidated and the man behind its associated companies, which between them control the biggest share of the soap output in the world. Yeah, you damn soap kings think you're above the rest of us just because we don't bathe. It's common knowledge, too, that Bolitho Blane was the big man of the British group who were our principal competitors. A price war ruinous to both parties has been going on for years. And I considered that the best thing to do was for Blane and me to get together. Sexually? No. See if we couldn't arrange some sort of an amalgamation and put our concerns on a more solid footing. If anyone had come to know what was in the air, the shares of both groups would have gone up like a skyrocket, and neither Blane nor I wanted that. It would have meant such a terrible slump afterwards. If we'd failed to make a deal, you see, then it was essential we should meet someplace where nobody would get to know about it. I suggested my yacht, and Blane agreed. He was to have joined us before we left New York by seaplane, but he sent a message at the last moment saying he couldn't make it and would come aboard at Miami. Yeah, I know, you already told me this, Dingus McGee. He came off in a tender just before 7 o'clock last evening and went straight down to his cabin. I've already told you what occurred after that. Look, I get why he doesn't want that news to come out, because it would affect the stock price if people tried to front-run the merger. Thank you, Mr. Rocksavage, that's fine. I can quite understand you're not wishing to have your intended conference with Mr. Blane, get about, owing to its effect on the market. Now, tell me about these other guests of yours. Was it in any sense a pleasure trip, or were all of them concerned in this business with you and Mr. Blane? Well, I mean, one or two of them were on account of business. And which were they? Lady Walter. You have heard of her, I expect. She's the widow of the shipping man, Sir David Walter, who made a big pile in the war. He died soon after, but his widow's a wonderful businesswoman as well, although in many ways she's much more concerned with politics and social good. She runs a group of papers in Great Britain, and they cost her a tiny packet, I believe, but that's her business. She has an outside income, and so can afford it. A lot of her money is tied up in my companies. In fact, she is my biggest individual shareholder, and I value her opinion, so that's why I asked her to join us for this trip. She's an old friend of mine. You saying she's old? That's rude. No, not like that. I mean, she might be. I mean, she is. But she's an old friend of mine, though, and quite outside any business operations, she's been my guest on the yacht and other places many times before. Anyone else? Well, I suppose you'd include young Reggie Jocelyn. He's her son-in-law, and the old lady thinks a lot of him. Since he married the daughter, she runs him around and asks his opinion on most things that she does. And oh man, that's not politically correct anymore. The Japanese gentleman of Japanese persuasion? Yes, he's business too. I've never met him before yesterday, although we've corresponded. What part does he play? Well, he's a sort of unofficial representative of the Japanese government. It's 1936. I'm sure we can trust those bastards. And he's been playing ball with me for some time now on the proposition of securing a monopoly of the Japanese market for our goods. He's been playing ball with Blane too, though, I don't doubt. Anyway, neither of us had seen our way to close the deal up to date, but I figured that if Blane and I could get together, we'd have the Jap cold between us, so we could both postpone clinching matters until we'd had our talk. I asked him along so that if we settled things satisfactorily, we could tackle him together afterwards and kill two birds at one sitting. Kill? Did you say kill? No, I mean, you know, it's a metaphor. How about the others on your boat? Oh, they're just straightforward guests who know nothing of the business which Blane and I were proposing to transact. Thank you, Mr. Rocksavage. That makes the situation a whole lot clearer. I'm afraid no one must go ashore yet, but I'll be seeing you when I've had a chat with these other people. I do not trust Rocksavage. The more he talks, the less I trust him. What else? Oh wait, we had a blueprint here. We should have had this earlier. So okay, we've got a diagram of the ship. Over here on the left where it says the letter C, that's Bolitho Blane's drawing room. That's his room with the bed and his bath. And then the J is Stoddart's room. You can kind of see the Z next to the drawing room. So that's supposedly the porthole where the body was most likely thrown out. What do we else we have here? X, steward's seat behind the door. I don't know why that really matters. So I guess that's where Ringbottom would have been when he was in the pantry when he left Blane. Count Posadini is next to Stoddart's room. Then we've got Mr. and Mrs. Jocelyn Welter. Then we've got Lady Welter. On the far side, we've got Rocksavage. And the next to him is Fairy Rocksavage, Rocksavage's daughter. There's Mr. Hayashi, the Japanese man representing the government, supposedly. An empty room, I think. And then the bishop's room up there. And then Y is the place where the ship's carpenter was working. We don't know anything about that yet. Maybe that portends to what is to come. I don't know about you, Gumshoes, but I think Rocksavage seems suspect as hell. But no time to dwell on that. We need to keep moving on with the investigation and the interviews. Let's move on to Silas Ringbottom and Kettering's interview with him. Morning, Ringbottom. Yeah, good morning, sir. Have you been on board the ship long? Yes, sirree. Ever since Mr. Rocksavage bought her, and before that, too, with the previous owner, Lord Folks. I'm an ex-Navy man, and this was my first job on leaving the service. Good. Well, there's just one or two things I want to ask you about this affair that occurred last night. According to what you told me, after you had been to Mr. Blane's suite to inquire if he wanted you to unpack, you went straight back to your pantry. Did a few odd jobs there, then read a book until the dinner bugle sounded. Is that correct? Oh, we can use the blueprint to look at that. Yes, sir, that is correct. You're quite sure you never left that pantry of yours? I'm not trying to pin anything on you. I don't think that at all, but I want you to be quite certain that you're not making any mistakes. Wait a minute, sir. I did leave it just once to slip up to the writing room to get some sheets of notepaper for the Japanese gentleman. He'd asked for it earlier on, but I found the racks were empty, and as the chief steward had been ashore at Miami, the storeroom was locked. When the Japanese man rang for me again later, though, the chief steward was back in his cabin, and he gave me some from the store. What time was that? A bit before 8 bells, sir. So just before 8 o'clock, he left the pantry area, and the pantry is right next door to the C-suite where Blane is. Just before 8 o'clock, eh? And apart from that, you never left the pantry? Oh, no, that's the truth, sir. Who else was on duty at that time? Only me, sir. The other stewards who helped with the cabins was at their job of laying up for dinner then, and the stewardess, Maud Briggs, that would have been, she would have been on duty, but she went down with the shingles 2 days ago. She's in the sick bay. That's hard to say fast, isn't it? She's in the sick bay. Oh, I guess you're right. Fortunately, there's only 3 ladies aboard, and 2 of them has their own maids, so they're looking after the other lady between them. Ringbottom, can you bring anybody to prove that you were in the pantry during all that time? Well, maybe it's lucky for me, sir. In the ordinary way, I wouldn't be able to, I gotta say. The stewardess being ill, but as it happens, I can. Sid Jinks, the ship's carpenter, was doing a job of work in the passageway during the whole of that time, and we passed the time of day, as you may say, quite frequent. Well, he was at it. He knows I never left my pantry, except to get that Japanese man his notepaper. Not before the dinner bugle went. Did it strike you as unusual that Mr. Blane's cabin door was locked when you went to tidy it up? Oh, no, sir, not particular. Visitors varies, they do. Some's open-handed, some's not. Some's suspicious, some's not. Visitors who haven't sailed with us before sometimes lock their cabin doors for the first day or two out. Then they don't bother, no. No more. I didn't think nothing of it. I just unlocked the door with my master key and went straight into the room. That's good. Now, from your pantry, you can't see the door of Mr. Blane's suite, can you? No, sir. You see, my pantry's an inside cabin, so I can't see around the corner along the passageway. No. That's quite obvious from the ship's plans I've got in front of me. So you wouldn't be able to see if anyone approached Mr. Blane's cabin from the lounge, would you? No, sir. But you would be able to see anybody that came the other way, from the forward companionway, which leads to the upper and lower decks, wouldn't you? Oh, I would, sir. That I would. So if they'd come through by the front stairs, he would have seen them. Was your pantry door open during this time? Yes, sir. Now, think carefully, Ringbottom. All depends on this. Did you see any member of the crew, or any other person, come either up or down the companionway and pass your door, going in the direction of Mr. Blane's cabin between 7:45 and 8:30 last night? I only miss Rocksavage's maid, sir. Going along to dress her, no one else. Only Rocksavage's kid's maid. But you would have seen anyone else if they had, right? Oh, yes, sir. I couldn't have helped seeing them. Right. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you. Assuming, and maybe I shouldn't, assuming that Ringbottom's telling the truth, and I don't have a reason to disbelieve him right now, the only person that would have come through Blane's way from at least the north part of the passage, right, the front, it's not really north, would have been the maid for Miss Rocksavage, which I would doubt would want to kill Bolitho Blane, or any murderer would have had to come in through the other way, which means they would have come from a different room, or they would have come from the lounge, because the afterway companionway only goes up to the lounge. Did anybody leave the lounge during that time period from 7:45 to 8:30? Didn't Rocksavage leave the lounge somewhere around there? So we know from Rocksavage's testimony that he left the lounge about 8:10 to change and then returned about 8:30. And I believe we have confirmation that he left and came back about that time. So if he'd come down from the loungeway, which are these stairs, he could have gone to his room, which is right here in the lower right of the ship, and then gone back to the lounge, or he could have maybe snuck off to Blane's room along the western, the port side passage, and done in Mr. Blane? Or he may have ran into somebody else who had gone down the stairs or been in there who did Blane in. Or he could have been honest and he just went to his room and then came back up. That is also possible. Very interesting. I think it's time we interview that carpenter. That will allow us to decide to prove whether or not Ringbottom's statement is correct, because that could be very valuable. If Ringbottom's telling the truth, and I think he is, that limits how people could have gotten to Bolitho Blane's cabin to murder him. Here we go. The ship's carpenter. Good morning, Jinx.
Good morning, sir.
How long have you been aboard this ship?
Just on 2 years, sir. Ever since Captain Derringham took over. He brought me with him from his previous ship, the Southern Cross.
Right. Now, do you mind telling me where you were between 7:30 and 8:30 last night?
Well, I was fitting new skirting boards to the stewardess' pantry on deck from just about 7:30, sir.
That lines up with our blueprints where you can see him in the upper right corner. X on the left side, once again, is Ringbottom's position at that time, more or less. From where you were working, Mr. Jinx, could you see the door of Mr. Blane's suite?
No, sir, no. I was working on the starboard side, just across from the forward companionway.
Was the companionway in your view the whole time?
Yes, sir.
Did you see anyone go up or down it during the time you were working there?
Lady Welter's maid went below just after I set to work.
Well, that certainly confirms what Ringbottom said. The other thing I've noticed is, if he was working there, I don't know if he was looking down both, he could have looked all the way to the aft part of the ship and all the way to the port side of the ship, meaning he could probably tell us if Rocksavage came over to the dining room or his drawing room, if Rocksavage went to the right room. Hopefully his back wasn't to that. Just after 7:30, you saw the maid walk by?
Yes, sir. Then Nellie Ord, Ms. Rocksavage's maid, came up to dress her mistress later on. About 10 past 8, I should say.
That's the wrong maid. Lady Welter's maid was not seen by Ringbottom. Lady Welter's maid came down sometime after 7:30, but before 7:45. Ringbottom didn't see that because he was getting paper for Mr. Hayashi, which means he might have been down here on the starboard side. Did anybody see Rocksavage? Mr. Rocksavage. So Mr. Rocksavage would have been down a little bit later. So you saw Lady Welter's maid just after 7:30, eh?
Yes, sir. Then Nellie Ord, Miss Rocksavage's maid, came up to dress her mistress much later on. About 10 past 8, I should say.
And that is the one that Ringbottom also saw. Anybody else?
No, sir.
Could you see the entrance of the steward's pantry from where you were?
Yes, sir. It was just across the companionway on the port side.
Was anyone there? Do you know?
Oh, yes, sir. The cabin steward, Mr. Ringbottom.
Was he in his pantry the whole time you were at your job?
Yes, sir. Well, except for when he went to answer the Japanese gentleman's bell, and then off to the chief steward to get some note paper from him out of the store. He remarked, I remember, about the slackness of the lounge steward and letting it run out in the writing room because somebody else had asked for some earlier on in the afternoon when the chief steward was ashore, and there weren't none.
What time was that?
I'm afraid I couldn't say, sir.
Can you give me any kind of idea? Just ballpark it here, bro.
I hardly like to say the time. You see, I didn't notice particular, but being busy on the job and all, you know.
Was it before or after 8?
Oh, it was before 8. Maybe a quarter to, but I wouldn't like to say for certain. Ringbottom was away about 5 minutes, then, you know, the rest of the time, he was in his pantry because, although we couldn't see each other, every now and then we exchanged remarks.
Alright, so you couldn't see him the whole time, but you kept talking back and forth to him. Did you see anybody, and I mean anybody else in the passageway during the time you were working there?
Only the bishop, sir. He went up. There was at 8 o'clock because I heard the ship's bells immediately after. I remember that.
Why would he have seen the bishop? Well, the bishop's room is right next to him. But various other people must have been coming down from the lounge or going back up to it during that time.
Oh, that's true, of course, but the companionway to the lounge is way aft, nowhere near where I was. I heard cabin doors shutting now and then, but you see, I had my back to the passageway most of the time, and I didn't take much notice what happened behind me, being busy with my job.
That is unfortunate. That means we don't have... He didn't have a sight to see towards aft to see if Rocksavage actually came to his room as he said he did. What time, Mr. Jenks, did you stop work?
Well, that was just after the dinner bugle sounded at 8:30.
Right, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you, Jenks.
Well, you're welcome, sir.
I think this brings us all back to that blood stain, like you can see in the top right, the blood stain on the curtain. When I see that, I think bullet. I think that Blane got shot by a gun, but there's not a bullet hole, so I can't prove that. Let's do a thought experiment a moment. If Blane was shot, then had his body dragged and dumped out of the porthole, why didn't anyone hear the gunshot? What if everyone did hear the gunshot? What if they heard the gunshot, but they thought it was the sound of Jenks doing carpentry? Because we know from testimony and the chicken scratch note, most likely Blane died after 7:40, but before 8:30. We also know from Jenks' testimony and confirmation from the steward Ringbottom that From 7:30 to 8:30, that entire time, Jenks was making noise, doing carpentry on the starboard front side of the ship. But Ringbottom, when he was in the pantry, and he was in the pantry for most of that time, he could have probably heard a gunshot because Blane's suite is kind of kitty corner away from there. Which would mean if Blane was shot, or if he was killed in a loud way, it was probably while Ringbottom was not in the pantry. And there's only a short window he's not in the pantry. Right before 8 p.m., Ringbottom leaves the pantry to get stationery, paper for Mr. Hayashi. He's gone for only about 5 minutes, and we know for sure he's back at 8:10 because at 8:10 p.m., both he and Jenks see Nellie Ord go up the companionway. Maybe Blane was murdered, at least if he was shot, in that little 5-minute window, a 5-minute window just before 8 and sometime before 8:10. What we need to know, what I want to know then is, was he shot? What was the murder weapon? And when Carlton Rocksavage said he was going to go change for dinner, did he come down and make a secret detour to visit Blane's cabin during that window in which Blane was killed? I don't know. What do you think, Gumshoes?